So one of the nice things about using Adobe is that most of the programs can kind of talk to each other in various different ways. And so with After Effects, the tools for composition are kind of limited versus something like Illustrator, where we can make much more complex designs and drawings. So you might want to create something in Illustrator and then use it in After Effects. And there's a couple different ways to do that. So what I'm going to do is use the self-portrait that I created in Illustrator as an example. So here's this Illustrator self-portrait. I'm going to make a copy of this so I don't change the original. So I'm just going to hit Command D and duplicate this and drag this over to my After Effects project. And then I'll open that up. Skip. Okay. So I'm going to simplify this a little bit. So I'm just going to get rid of the text and this graphic here. And I'm going to unlock this, and I'll just lock these guys. So I don't actually have to delete those, but I'm just going to show this background layer. And basically, there's two different ways to put this into Illustrator. Let me actually put these shapes on a couple different layers. So let's put, I'll make a new layer, and I'll put a couple of these shapes over here. And let's see. Oops. Okay, so I'll put this over here, and so I'll have two different layers. So I'll have a foreground and a background. So I'm just kind of using a random thing here, so it's not maybe the best illustration, but I just want to show what this will look like in After Effects. So if I want to bring this into After Effects, I can bring it in as a single image. And so the way that I can do that is I can go to File and go to Import and go to File, and then I'll just choose my Illustrator copy. And notice that it gives me this option. I can import as footage or composition. So I'm going to start by importing it as footage, and I'm going to say Create Composition and click Open. And so it's going to ask me this again, and I have options to either choose a specific layer or to merge the layers together. That's when I'm importing footage. So I'll hit OK. And so now I have my self-portrait copy, which is its own composition, and it's merged this all into one layer. So I can still animate this, like I can move it around, I can rotate it, I can scale it, and I can drop it into my main composition. So I could go over to main, and if I want to include my self-portrait, I can take the composition and add it here. And I can animate it. So let's keyframe the position, and just as an example, I'll just animate it going across the screen. And so there we go. So now I have this little composition here, and I can animate it. And the thing that's nice about this is, now if I want to, I can go back and I can update my Illustrator self-portrait, and it'll update in After Effects. So if I go over to Illustrator, and let's say I decide I don't want to use the same color, I'll select all these shapes and open this color picker, and maybe I'll do something like that and save. So once I save it over in Illustrator, it's going to update automatically in After Effects. So the Adobe programs kind of know how to talk to each other, and so I can make a more complicated drawing in Illustrator, or like a logo or something like that. And then if I want to add it into my animation, I can still make updates, and it'll retain those updates when I go over to After Effects. So again, you don't have to do this, but it's a good way to be able to add some more complicated graphics without having to separate them or turn them into a JPEG or something like that. I can actually connect my two Adobe files. The other way that I can import this is as a composition, and that will actually retain the different layers, so I can actually animate the separate layers. So let's look at that example real quick. I'll leave this as is for now. So I'll go to File and Import and File again, and I'll import the same one, but now instead of footage, I'm going to say composition. And so now, if I open up this new composition, notice that it has my layers on here. And notice that it even imported the eyeball, whether they're visible or not. So my text layers are not visible. And I can also animate separate layers. So let's say I want my background to do some weird animation. I can just keyframe the position, maybe wiggle it around a little bit, move it back and forth. I'm not really doing anything specific here. I'm just doing this to kind of show an example. Okay, so I can animate this separately. Maybe I'll make this a little faster, so I'll move these down here. So I'm just moving these keyframes down just to make it a little more fast and interesting. Okay, so now we've got a different version where we're animating the background. Let's shorten our composition a little bit. So I'm just going to trim the composition to the work area. And now I can bring this as a composition in. So I'll go back to my main timeline. The names of my compositions are starting to get a little complicated since I have a bunch of copies of stuff. So this is a point at which I may want to give these some better names. But just for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to go ahead and add this in here. So now I have an animated version of this guy. And I can also animate this again inside here. So I can have another little animation going on. Maybe this guy will go like that. And again, this will update with my Illustrator updates. So I've got these two different animations. If I want to update this again, let's say I decided I didn't like that color, I can undo and save, and it's going to update again in After Effects. So using Illustrator is much more powerful drawing and illustration tool, but we can't, of course, do animation in Illustrator. So we can combine Illustrator and After Effects to get some more interesting and complex animations. Okay, so that is what I wanted to cover as far as importing footage from Illustrator. So I'm going to stop here, and now we'll go over exporting and submitting the project.